Howdy, howdy. Frosty510 here, and I got a sort of a different video today. I'm going to read LocalThunk's full, maybe there's a second part coming, hopefully there is, Balatro Timeline. Now, the reason I'm going to read it out is because I really liked it, and I honestly felt quite emotional going through it. So I wanted to, make a video about it, but at the same time, it's kind of, I'm just reading it, so reading it out loud to you. So yeah, if you haven't read it yourself, of course, I highly recommend you look it up. It's at localthunk.com/blog/Balatro Timeline 3R. Why is it the 3R at the end? Alright, so this can be a bit of a long video, but hopefully you stick with it. Yeah, so let's just go through it. It's gonna be, here we go. The Balatro Timeline. It's been approximately 3 years since I began work on Balatro, and in that time I have personally documented almost nothing about the journey. This is something that has bothered me since the game launched. I am constantly forgetting major moments in development or milestones. It's about time I start writing down what happened. I say better late than never. This is an account of everything related to Balatro development in chronological order, up to and including the launch day. This should tell a story, but more importantly will serve as a story of truth for me when I look back on this time in a few years to recall the details correctly. I already noticed, talking to friends, players and media, that I contradict myself on some of the details from time to time. I'll try and keep this up to date as I remember more about what happened. December 13th, 2021. Let's just randomly click things and have things in the background so get distracted. See, I'll just let it go. Okay. This is the creation date for template. A folder in my learning LUA directory. This is the creation of the project that would eventually become Balatro. I had saved up about 3 weeks of vacation time from my IT job, and since they didn't allow people to accrue vacation year over year, I just took off a bunch of time in December to work on some kind of project. At the very beginning of this time off, I was working on a game called LocalThunk. I had been working on this game for a few months at this point, but I wasn't really feeling it anymore. So very early into my vacation, I pivoted to cleaning up the code I had created and making a template for a new game. The initial idea on December 13th was to create an online multiplayer version of Big Cheat, a game that a few friends and I had invented many years prior and played a ton based on the card games Big 2 and Cheat. This whole first week was mostly me trying to upgrade the engine I built with LocalThunk to better fit a card game. December 20th, 2021. This is the creation date for Card Game, my current production working folder for all Balatro source code. I never bothered changing the name. I remember spending a long time making custom pixel art for the red deck, back, and all the playing cards. It was the first time I had tried making proper pixel art. I had a very weird prototype. There was no jokers. There were no blinds to select. The upgrade system consisted of randomly choosing a card from the deck and slapping a weird enhancement on it. But it definitely had the bones of Balatro at this point, so it was pretty clear that I abandoned the online Big Cheat idea immediately. The game had the chip XMalt mechanic already. I really don't know where this idea came from, but it seemed very natural for a scoring system. Earlier in December, I was watching videos of Luck Be a Landlord from Northern Lion, and that whole score attack concept really fueled the direction I wanted to go with this game from this point onward. I also made a very conscious effort not to play any more roguelike games starting now. I want to be crystal clear here and say that this was not because I thought it would result in a better game. This was because making games is my hobby, releasing them and making money from them is not. So naively exploring roguelike design, and especially deck builder design since I'd never played one before, was part of the fun for me. I wanted to make mistakes, I wanted to reinvent the wheel, I didn't want to borrow tried and true designs from existing games. That likely would have resulted in a more tight game, but it would have defeated the purpose of what I love about making games. I started sharing progress with a few of my friends, but no builds were shared yet. January 2022. My vacation is over, but I'm now fully immersed and obsessed. This is my favorite feeling in the world. When I was back in university, I would routinely stay up until the wee hours of the morning working on my weird game projects and greet my parents while they made their morning coffee. I got back into this groove and starting in January, I was hooked. Evenings and weekends were Joker Poker Time, my working title for Balatro, likely decided on early this month. I iterate through some weird versions of the game, including a version where the only way to upgrade anything is to upgrade the cards in your deck in a sort of pseudo shop, and those cards can be upgraded multiple times. Think like super auto pets. Pets have different XP levels when combined, same idea. February 2022. I started adding jokers to the game. I also was temporarily working remotely. I was out of province for a few months starting at this time and found that my Balatro time took a pretty big hit. I started adding different boss blinds to the game. March 2022. Early March marked an important event in the history of Balatro, and I wanted to describe why things happened the way they did. I stopped working on the project entirely. I've been making games for about 10 years now, and I've been doing visual art projects for much longer, and a very important habit I've developed for creative hobby projects is to stop working on something when I no longer feel the drive. This is for two main reasons. First, it allows me to move on to the next idea without totally burning out on the last thing. Second, and more importantly, in this case, it allows me to take time off guilt-free and possibly come back to the project later on without wrapping it in negative emotions. That leads us to May 2022. We are so back. This is the last month I'm away from home, but I start carving out my evenings and weekends to work on Joker Poker again. My brain is teeming with ideas. I'm so excited about the game again, I have a ton of momentum. I create and quickly scrap a bunch of new systems to test, such as a separate currency for rerolls outside of money, dollar symbol, and a golden seal to be added to playing cards when you skip all blinds that returns that card to hand after it has been played. It is during this burst of productivity that I first start thinking about a possible Steam release of the game. This was the first time in my 8 years of game development that I even considered publicly releasing a game I had made. Normally they just end up going to a couple of friends, but honestly the main purpose of my games wasn't for them to be consumed, rather for them to just be made. Another factor for me starting to consider a Steam launch was that my partner was almost finished her PhD and the writing was on the wall that we may be moving out of province for good as she looked for a job. If this was the case, I would have to quit my job and look for work. I thought, why not try and get a game developer job somewhere? To accomplish that, I thought having a Steam game in my portfolio would be a big benefit. I really didn't have any commercial aspirations at this time. All I knew about Steam is that there were about 1 million games on there and that very few could realistically make a living, so I didn't think it was possible to consider it. It was in during this month that my eventual developer name, LocalThunk, was incepted. My partner was learning to code in R at the time, and she asked me, how do you name your variables? I went on some rant about casing, using descriptive words, underscores, etc. She waits until I'm finished and says, I like to call mine Thunk. I thought that was just about the funniest thing I'd ever heard. The way variables are declared in Lua is sometimes with the local keyword, thus LocalThunk was born. I wouldn't choose this name for quite a while yet, but this is the moment I look back on when I was finally ready to create a developer handle online. Still working on the game. Okay, so June 2022. Still working on the game. Details of what exactly I was adding at this point are fuzzy. I think by this time Joker Poker has economy, a bunch of jokers, and generally resembles the current version of Balatro. I share a new version of the game with some friends. August 2022. One of those friends gets back to me months later with very high praise, unexpectedly high. He mentions that he's played the beta for dozens of hours. In all my years of sharing projects with friends, I'd never received feedback like that. I couldn't believe it. And it really pushed me over the edge to fully flesh out this idea. It was really great knowing that this game was actually being enjoyed by someone I know, and wanted to prove to him, my other friends, my partner, my family, and myself that I could make something really fun and interesting. At this point I started really increasing scope. More jokers, controller support, touch support, Jimbo the cheeky tutorial character, a soundtrack, proper sound effects, special editions for cards, and way more got added to the docket. I felt like scope creep incarnate, and it was amazing. January 2023. As anticipated, my partner got a really great job in a different province, and I quit my job to move there with her. I was really excited for this new chapter in our lives, and I also decided to not look for work for the next 3 to 6 months and develop Joker Poker full time. It was the perfect opportunity to work as a game dev full time, even if for free. And I didn't know if I would ever have the chance again. I had some money saved up, so starting this month I really leaned into it. I took a brief vacation, February 2023, I took a brief vacation to surf in California with some friends. I showed them the new build I've been working on, a version that would end up on Steam within a few months. This version now had vouchers. We can go to the voucher page. Let's go voucher page. Here we go. See, we're at vouchers. Alright, March 2023. This month I contacted Louis Clement on the freelance website Fiverr, and he delivered an absolutely amazing soundtrack for Joker Poker. Really knocked it out of the park. I was very nervous about this because it was, at the time, the only money I'd spent on or planned to spend on the game. I also showed the game to some friends during a Discord call, and one friend made the suggestion that there should be a flaming effect on your score if you get a really good hand. I hated the idea at first, but I sat with it for a while, and I knew I was wrong. That flaming score effect really fit perfectly with the game I was trying to create. Sure glad I listened to him. I workshopped a list of 20 names for the game. I saw that the game Joker Poker was already an app on the App Store, but beyond that it felt just a bit too silly for the vibe I was shooting for. I sent this list of new names to my friends, and I got all of their feedback. Balatro was among that list, but nobody picked it. Something about it really stuck with me, so I just went with it. Epic dev moment. April 2023. I started creating store assets this month. I created a trailer, got my screenshots, and paid the very scary $100 Steam fee to upload a game. I also had pretty massive code refactor at this point. The name is officially Balatro. I was pretty overwhelmed by Steam, just starting to look into things like how to launch an indie game. It was really freaking me out. There are so many games released on Steam every day, and so much noise about what you should and shouldn't do, what type of game you should make, what method you should use to market it. It was a real shock to me that even though I had this game that I poured so much time into, that it didn't really seem to matter. I didn't think this game would sell any copies before this, and my initial research into Steam reinforced that idea to me. May 2023. I downloaded Slay the Spire and played it for the first time. Holy shit! Now that is a game. I did this because I was having some troubles in my controller implementation. I wanted to see how they handle the controller inputs for a card game, but I ended up getting sucked in. Thank goodness I avoided playing it until now, because I surely would have just copied their incredible design, intentionally or subconsciously. In late May, I uploaded the first public beta build to Steam, set my store page live, and saw exactly what I expected to happen. Nothing. The fact that I wasn't anticipating any fanfare probably saved me some heartache, because I didn't end up feeling dejected from the very tepid response my free beta was getting from players. Feedback started coming in from the beta players. This marks the beginning of a more player-focused development strategy. I would adhere to it instead of just listening to my gut all the time. By end of May, Balatro had 48 wish lists on Steam. Early June 2023, this is about the time when Balatro stopped being a pure hobby for me. YouTubers started covering the game. It was mostly small and indie game specific channels, but the attention definitely started growing over time. Let's go booster packs. Yeah. The Discord server I had made for feedback about the game started taking up more of my time. However, at this time, there was nothing to indicate that the game was going to start popping off. Even so, I started really thinking about the commercial viability of the game. Could I actually make some money from this? I saw a glimmer of possibility that this might turn into something. My partner and I went on a big backcountry canoe trip for a few days. During this trip, we talked about the future of this game, what it meant for my work. Even with the mild momentum, I was ready to move on. And since back in January I told her this would be 6 months, at most 6 months, I felt that I shouldn't push it too much longer. It had already been a year and a half of dev at this point. I prepared to launch the game in 2 weeks. The release date went live on my Steam page, and I started thinking about moving on to looking for a job again and getting back into normal software IT work. I got a DM on Twitter from a scout at Playstack, my eventual publisher. I was super excited, but this was also complicated things. This was a very tumultuous time in the history of the game because I was in limbo between nothing will come of this game and I want to move on with my life, and what if I could do this as a job? By June 10th, Balatro had 183 wishlists on Steam. Mid-June 2023, Dan Giesling plays Balatro on his stream. This is a massive streamer for my game and a great guy, and it starts making my wishlist numbers spike. Other medium-sized YouTubers and streamers start playing the game. It is building momentum. At this point, the game was spreading entirely from word of mouth. I had posted a few things on Reddit and Twitter, but really nothing that ever gained meaningful traction. Now that the game had inertia by itself, it becomes clear that I should pursue the game a little further. I'm approached by a few different publishers around now. I get some really great support and advice from my parents about everything going on. I strongly consider going it alone, but I also know that I need some help with all the public-facing things, marketing, possible porting, and just navigating this new thing I knew nothing about. I'll hire a lawyer to help me with all the contract negotiations, help me set up a business, and decide to sign with PlayStack after speaking to studios that have worked with them in the past. They can replace whatever salary I would have made from an IT job, so this is my job now. While this was a very exciting time, it was also incredibly stressful. I'm not used to dealing with so many people, and I felt pressure from so many different directions that I wasn't expecting. I created a demo version of the game that only lasted 50 rounds after my free beta tester queue started getting bigger. At this point I had 300 beta testers for the full game, and I didn't really need any more. This demo strategy wasn't the best idea, but it allowed people to see what Balatro was all about without just getting the full game for free. The demo was getting around 10 to 20 concurrent players, which was really mind-blowing for me at the time. By end of June, Balatro had 2,440 wishlists on Steam. July 2023, I released big updates around this time for the playtesters. I added the skip tag system and totally revamped the tutorial to basically what it is today. The trajectory for the game appears at this time to be big enough for me to replace my income for a year at least. This was so exciting to me. I hadn't really thought about it before because I was doing this work on my weekends and during my evenings anyway. After a bunch of negotiations, I finally signed a publishing deal with PlayStack. I won't go too far into whether or not people should or shouldn't have a publisher, but for me at this time, it was crucial that I have some publishing help. They outlined a very sensible release plan for the game, one that we adhere to almost exactly until launch in February 2024. And they really expanded the audience a ton with support for more languages and porting on day one for every major console. My demo is getting some attention from streamers still, but one day in mid-July, Northern Lion was pitched the game on his stream from Dan Giesling and ended up playing it the same day. I was in the chat watching, totally dumbfounded, that someone I watched on Twitch/YouTube for over a decade at that point was playing my game. I text all my friends about it. They're all shocked as well. At that time I was more concerned about a potential crash or something going horribly wrong, but I also just try to just sit, watch, and enjoy the surreal moment. Northern Lion was playing the 50 round demo version, and after he quickly ran through all 50 rounds, I got his attention and gave him a key to play the full beta version. I think some people weren't super fond of this because he got special treatment, but honestly, I was more in fan mode than in dev mode. Looking back, I'm glad I gave him the key. That was a massive moment for my game, and even though it was tricky to navigate. PlayStack and I decided that we should take down the demo and come up with a better strategy than limiting players to 50 rounds. By end of July, Balatro had 28,661 wishlists on Steam. August 2023, the new demo plan is in place, and most of August is me preparing for a September release of this demo. The plan now is to make the demo content limited instead of round limited. This means the players can play as much as they want, which is much more sensible. The demo should be ready for a couple of weeks before the fall 2023 new Next Fest in October. The Next Fest is a festival set up by Steam to shine a spotlight on upcoming games for the platform. While we weren't planning on adding Balatro as an official entry in the October 2023 Next Fest, we thought having a demo available at the same time at the festival might gather some incidental attention. This is where my sleep and heart started having issues. I've talked about this a tiny bit in the past, but I really struggled with my physical and mental health from this time onward. All the way up to launch, this was entirely because of the stress around dealing with the public, players, and pressure to get everything done before February 2024. We started exploring the feasibility of porting the game to different platforms. I won't talk about this much more because of the agreements around those platforms, but suffice it to say, this ended up being a very large portion of my work and time over the coming months. By end of August, Balatro had 38,011 wishlists on Steam. September 2023, I start converting all the text in the game to an external English file to facilitate localization to other languages. I didn't plan on having this game translated when it was a hobby, so I had to do this all over. This is all after the fact. It didn't end up being too horrible. Just some rework that I could have saved if I knew I was doing this from the beginning. Near the end of September, I launched the new demo on Steam. Maybe get out of this one. How about... Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, now near the end of September, I launched the new demo on Steam. People generally really like it. I try and make some tweaks based on player feedback, but it's clear this approach is much better than limiting players to 50 rounds. The last few months I've been very involved in the Balatro Discord server. I try and chat with players all the time and try to take their criticism seriously. I feel like the demo and beta players knew more about how to play the game properly than I did. So I found it was really important to listen to what they had to say about the game in order to properly assess what I need to change or tweak for balance. Listening to players, who would have thought? By the time the September demo is live, there are tons of players chatting in the Discord server all the time. I feel pretty overwhelmed by it all, but I feel like I need to interact with them constantly. I didn't want to waste the opportunity. We also chatted a lot about general design things that players might be interested in to see the full 1.0 version of the game. By end of September, Balatro had 49,791 wishlists on Steam. October 2023. Next Fest goes live early in the month, and as anticipated, we do catch a lot of attention for having a demo live at the same time. We get pretty good coverage in general around this time from YouTubers, streamers, and even some media. We originally planned on taking the demo down a week or so after the Next Fest ended, but so many people kept playing it that we decided to keep that version of the demo live for quite a while longer. I started finalizing the content plan for the 1.0 version of the game. The biggest addition is the inclusion of a sort of ascension system. This is from Slay the Spire. See, told you it's still from it. But I think it was super cool way to add difficulty and give players a sort of checklist to work through. So I'll show you exactly what he means by that. He means this. The gold stake system. Oh, I wish the damn stick wasn't moving. Yeah, so this is the ascension system. Yeah. I also had a meeting with PlayStack this month where I described to them the final content in the game, including 120 Jokers. Later that week, I had another meeting with them, and someone mentioned something about 150 Jokers. I couldn't remember if I accidentally said I was going to make 150 or they misheard me. But either way, I thought that 150 was a much better number. So I added 30 more Jokers to the plan. I can't remember if it was now or in September, but we enlisted the help of Martin DeMeyer to help with our porting efforts. Martin was absolutely instrumental in getting Balatro on every platform, and frankly, he's a love 2D wizard. I'm going to interrupt the storytelling for one moment. The getting Balatro on every platform is incredible effort. Like this is the part of it, the whole story for me, that's utterly inconceivable. The amount of work, it's just insane. Like so many games have trouble getting on multiple platforms. It's such a big issue, such a challenge dealing with the various platforms all at the same time. Incredible effort. So Martin DeMeyer here, props. All right, back to the story. My sleep and my heart are getting worse. Every few nights I need to sleep sitting upright on the couch because sleeping while lying down kept getting interrupted by my heart. I stupidly thought that I couldn't handle going to the doctor while dealing with all the dev and business stuff swirling around at the time. I felt totally overwhelmed. By the end of October, Balatro had 77,380 wishlists on Steam. November 2023. We keep the demo up for the entire month of November since our player numbers are still pretty high. More of the same from previous months. This is basically crunch time. So for the next couple of months, I'm just working on finishing everything in my plan. The game is to be launched right after the following Next Fest scheduled for February 2024. This means that we want a new version of the demo with slightly different content to be available for that Next Fest. So I'm working on that on the side. Additionally, we have an idea to make an invitational tournament for streamers with an early build of this new version of the demo. This is scheduled to happen sometime in late January 2024. By end of November, Balatro had 87,280 wishlists on Steam. December 2023. More of the same. By this time, it's clear we can launch on every platform thanks to monumental effort by both Martin and his wizardry, and also a massive amount of optimization to my code base that I had worked on over the previous months. Incredible. We decided to take down the demo by the end of December because we want some breathing room before we launch the next iteration. By end of December, Balatro had 94,212 wishlists on Steam. January 2024. My heart is really bothering me. I routinely can't sleep until the sun comes up, and my mental health is really suffering. I love working on the game, but working on it so publicly with such an intensity for so long is really catching up with me. One night I'm watching the movie The Abyss with my partner, and suddenly I get tunnel vision. My heart is absolutely pounding, and I feel like something is seriously wrong. I sit on the couch for a while, totally freaked out. I'm really scared. I call my doctor and see him the next morning for an appointment. He assures me that this wasn't a heart attack or heart failure, but an anxiety attack. I'm not normally an anxious person. I've never had issues with this in the past, but I think the intense stress for such a long time has done quite a bit of damage. He asked me if my work has been stressful lately. I don't even know how to explain. January 19th is the Invitational Tournament. We have 6 streamers participate. This was actually a really great moment for me to sit back and watch the fruits of my labor for once. Not work on the game and just enjoy. My partner and I order sushi, sit down and watch the multi-stream broadcast by Murphy of playing a hilarious character. It was probably my favorite moment of the entire pre-launch phase of the game. Just really wonderful to see this silly game come together for a moment and watch a bunch of people participate like a community. Hafu wins because of course she does. She's Hafu. We announce the launch date of the game, February 20th. By end of January, Balatro had 114,977 wishlists on Steam. February 2024. I was still working on implementing stuff in the game in February, believe it or not. I was in super crunch mode. I had a private server made a little while earlier with testers from the Balatro community that I felt exhibited an exceptional ability to give feedback, understand the vision of the game, and analyze the flaws with it. I think this was instrumental in making sure that the 1.0 version of the game really started fun out of the gate. I chatted with them a ton this month. I knew there would be tweaks after launch, but this was important to ensure that something catastrophic didn't happen. We have a really strong next fest. We get a ton of coverage from streamers, YouTubers and media yet again. Balatro is one of the most played games of the festival. I start properly playing the game myself about a week before launch, and it's actually fun. I have a pretty emotional moment where I feel like I did the thing I set out to do. Finally, I made the fun game I wanted to make. We have an absurd amount of momentum leading up to launch day, far more than what anyone was expecting. February 19th rolls around. The 19th is the review embargo day, and PlayStation did a truly exceptional job getting this game in the hands of traditional media to write the reviews before launch. I didn't know what to expect. This was a pretty weird game after all. Average ratings of 6 or 7? The first big review is from PC Gamer, 91. PlayStation and I are on a call when they break the news to me, and I can tell they are pretty shocked. I am shocked. The rating doesn't make any sense. More ratings pour in, and by the time the day is done, we are sitting above 90 on both Metacritic and OpenCritic. I wasn't even thinking that this was a possibility, but it sure did build a ton of hype for launch day. I don't think I would have rated Balatro higher than an 8, and I made the damn thing. By launch day, Balatro has 208,401 wishlists on Steam. February 20th, 8 AM PST is when the game is supposed to go live across all platforms. We launch it 15 minutes early. I cannot describe to you how nervous I am that I'll be patching like a madman. Not all day, but all month. I told my partner that I won't be making any plans until the end of March because I fully anticipate the sky to fall and for me to be working 24/7 to fix the inevitable disaster. To my shock, nothing goes wrong. People love the game, they're having a great time. I think there may have been some small bugs, but definitely nothing massive. Nothing like what I was anticipating. Streamers are playing it, media is writing about it. I have so many texts from friends and family. It's the most surreal day of my life. The launch is 10 to 20 times larger than we were anticipating. One of the moments that sticks out to me is the moment I first checked the Steam page for sales. I checked this page for the first time a couple hours after launch, almost on a whim, not expecting to see any sales information yet, and we had already sold 50,000 copies on Steam. The numbers on that page made no sense. This was meant for just a few of my friends, and yet somehow all these strangers chose to buy it. The revenue on that page after just a couple hours was over $600,000. Far more money than I made in my entire life. By the end of launch day, Balatro has sold 119,000 units on Steam alone. The other moment from that day that sticks out is later that day, when my partner got home from work. She had been following along all day and struggling to get any work done, and when she got home she gave me a great big hug. I wasn't sure I'd even survive the launch, but here we are. I could not have done this without her. We ordered burgers for supper and popped a bottle of champagne to celebrate. Alright, so that was the Balatro Timeline by LocalThunk, the developer for Balatro. And so if you want to read it yourself, I'll put a link in the description. I'll add it. I just wanted to read it out loud. I wanted to... honestly, it gets me a little bit teary-eyed because it's so wonderful. The story is so wonderful. Just indie solo dev, tireless obsession, and just making a game for fun. They want to make something fun and interesting, and they get great success. So yeah, and I know the sales are now much higher than that. So it's just the multi-platform part I think is still so incredible. And then they did mobile. The mobile version is doing really well. It's, you know, positive gaming stories don't really get a huge amount of focus on the current internet. So, you know, I wanted to reinforce that this is such a positive story. And if you haven't played the game, obviously. But yeah. Thanks, LocalThunk, for making the game and writing the timeline, because I really enjoy reading it, and I hope you enjoyed me reading it out loud, not having it on the screen, because it's, you know, it is what it is. I want to have the game on the screen, but Joker, poker Joker. Yeah. Alright. Remember to like his post on the Balatro subreddit. We posted, you know, he does a lot of posts on there if you want to, you know, ask him questions or anything. Be kind as always. But, yeah. Alright. Alright, that was the Balatro Timeline. A reading. In my beautiful Australian accent, my voice dying. It was a bit of a long read and a bit of a long video, but I just think, yeah, highlighting great, positive, historical moments in gaming is what a gaming channel should do. Not just negative stuff and reviews, but, you know, I think it's good. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Obviously, read the thing for yourself and all that, but yeah, I thought that was good. All right, then. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.